I'm Jack Linkletter, and this is America Alive. Also, you're going to meet Alice Cooper. More accurately, two Alice Coopers. There's that far-out rock star, and there's also a very different and, I think, very likable private person. But even he got confused about who he was, and he'll talk about that. Back here in the studio, I want to tell you that the other day, rock star Alice Cooper was in New York for the premiere of his new Sgt. Pepper movie. Alice is in that movie. And we were able to talk with him, and I think you'll find it a rather surprising interview. Watch. Before punk, there was Alice Cooper. For over 10 years, this rock star, I think quite purposefully, shocked audiences with bizarre songs, rather horrible antics on stage, and in fact, one of his acts is called Welcome to My Nightmare. Well, one day, he realized that that is exactly what his life had become. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Alice Cooper. Hello, Alice. Hi. Please be seated. Welcome to the loft.
Very homey.
Yes, it is. And, you know, you have a story that absolutely fascinates me because of the contradictions in it. And what I'd like to start with is why we have you on the show. You had a habit of drinking, I understand, some 40 cans of beer a day or a couple quarts of whiskey. And I know that being an alcoholic has to be a tough experience. But what was the nightmare? We talked about your act, The Nightmare. What was the nightmare that led you to it? Why the drinking?
Well, the thing was, like, you know, it was, it's an unnatural situation, for one thing, to always be in the public eye. You know, I find myself going, if I want to go to a Dodgers game or if I want to go to anything like that, you're always being, you know, you're under the microscope. And I think that's a natural pressure that you go through, you know. Even though being a performer, you realize that that's part of it, you know. I didn't see the alcoholism coming on at all. I didn't even see it. I thought it was funny.
You didn't like the pressure of always being in a glass bowl.
No, I didn't. I liked the attention on stage. You know, because I was trying to get as much reaction from the audience as possible as the character Alice Cooper.
Okay, let me explore that contradiction, because on one hand, you have a shy quality to you. You're a minister's son, you're married, so that's kind of straight.
Yes.
You're really,
I'm the all-American
you're called
boy.
Vince,
Yeah.
you know, and yet this other guy, this gal, Alice, comes off as a homosexual, as being mean and degenerate.
No, never a homosexual. Alice has always been...
Well, that was a speculation.
Oh, yes, I mean, because of the name.
And the dress.
Yeah. Never a dress on stage. A lot of these things are always things that I go into cities and people say, well, and I say, no, I never did that, and I never killed chickens, and I never did that, and there's a lot of things that the rumors are amazing about me, you know.
But that's what exploited
I don't deny them.
You know? but you're saying they didn't all happen.
Oh no, I mean it's.
But what you did do, separating fact from fiction, is that you did appeal to what I would characterize as kind of a sick quality that at least a segment of the American public had to feel, or they wouldn't have just, you know, longed for that.
A sensationalism. I was listening to David Sheenan on the movie things, on the reviews, and I'm a total believer in sensationalism. I think that it's really necessary. I hate going to a movie and getting a message. You know, that's not why I go to movies. I like to see the shark eat a helicopter.
So are you saying that the audience...
Well, it's true. I mean, I would, if I thought of that, I would love to go see that. You know, if somebody told me the shark eats a helicopter, I'd say, great, I'll pay $4 to see that.
And so you're saying that really what the audience, in that case and in your case, is looking for is escape.
Yes. Oh, I think so, yeah. And I think that Alice Cooper has always been a sort of catharsis kind of thing. When we got on stage in sort of a Clockwork Orange image, you know, we were never a gay image at all. We were much more brutal than that in our earlier shows.
And you didn't feel a sense of responsibility that maybe you were stimulating violence and kind of bizarre action by your audience?
Because our audiences never had that kind of reaction. If you look back in all of our concerts, we never had a violent reaction. We exhausted the audience to the point where they couldn't even think about fighting after the show because they were totally exhausted.
They spent it there.
Yeah, well, we did it for them, you know, and more or less. And at the same time, we did it with a sense of humor, which I think was really important, you know.
You know, when I read about all these articles, all these interviewers who've done you, something that comes out to me, and maybe you can validate it, and that is you don't want to be anonymous. You want to be out there up front. But what I think if you died today, you'd really want to be remembered for is not wrapping snakes around you, but writing real quality music. And I'm wondering if all the act out there doesn't distract from the real talent you have, which is the communication talent of writing.
Yeah, well, there's also a kind of thing where I had to, if I would have painted myself into a corner and said, all I am is the grand ghoul of rock and roll, and that's all I do, then I would have been stuck there forever, you know. But I think that there is a sort of closet romantic side to me. So the last three things that I've written have been real ballads and real sensitive sort of mid-America ballads. Yeah, because I was born in Detroit, and I really do have a certain softness in my heart for the real Midwestern working person. So a lot of my lyrics will reflect that. But at the same time, when I go on stage, I would never go on stage and just do that, because that's not fun. And my whole thing is having fun. I go on and put the makeup on and the snakes and the whole thing. And when I see the audience reaction, they're going, "Oh boy," and I feel that's great. That's what the circus is about, and that's
okay. But I want to cap this, and then we're going to go out into the audience. The circus, though, to you got to you. I mean, that had to add to the drinking and that kind of a problem. Now you've cleaned up the drinking problem. Yeah. You're going back on the road, and to me, and I've traveled hootenanny and the folk music thing, which is different, but it has the hassle, the screaming crowds, the bodyguards, the hype, the image, and all of that. And it's hard to survive. I mean, witness Elvis Presley, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, a very close friend of yours.
Yes.
They died really because of this. Why do you go back and do the same thing again?
Because now I'm doing it differently. I'm doing it now as playing the character Alice. I think Jim Morrison and those people really wanted to live that character to the point of they were afraid of letting their public down, And I went through that crisis also, which threw me into a hospital. I thought if I didn't wear black leather and was seen with an axe chasing people down the streets, that people would say, "Oh, this Alice Cooper's a phony." But it's not, I now have it to where I play Alice on stage for 90 minutes a night, and I look forward to it.
And you're comfortable with it?
Oh, yeah. It's an acting job, and I love doing it. But when I come off stage, I can't wait to get to the golf course. Or I can't wait to get home and watch the Gong Show, or, whatever. Because, I mean, like I said, I'm an all-American kid, and I really love those things.
Okay, the all-American kid Alice Cooper will be the subject of questions from people from our audience after we come back from this commercial. Alice Cooper has been the subject of my questioning, and now we're going to turn the tables, or just at least let people in the audience ask questions. Would you please stand? You heard the interview. What would you like to ask Alice?
I'd like to know how old he is.
How old he is? How old do you think he is? I'll be unfair.
I wouldn't even want to venture a guess.
Well, he's been singing for 10 years. How old are you, Alice?
I just turned 30.
The reason why I wanted to know, Jack, was I was wondering if he thought that at some future time he was going to feel too old to be a rock star, or if rock stars really did reach an age where they were just too old.
Alice, you're 30 years old. What do you see yourself doing when you're 45?
Well, I see the Alice Cooper show as being like an American event sort of thing. It should be like an extra Halloween per year. And I would imagine it's going to be a traveling show like a circus. Well, but it will always be based in rock music, because that's my roots. And I think rock will just go on forever now,
Just like we have country and we have gospel, etc. What is your question?
Do you think that any of your act would have a psychological effect on some of the children?
A negative, I assume you mean, right?
Yeah, because you're forming, they follow you so tight, it's...
Be specific. What do you think they see when he performs that would be negative to them? Scary?
Not really the scariness, it's the bizarreness, maybe. I don't know, maybe it may be forming the kids like, maybe going into drugs, or maybe not even into drugs, but the whole form.
Well, I find that, I talk a lot to kids on the road and things like this, and I find that the kids in this generation are so much more aware, technically, of what's going on, and they're so much more aware that Alice Cooper does not really stand for what parents think Alice Cooper stands for. I stand totally on the level of entertainment and fun, and everybody takes my act. I mean, the kids that come to the show are laughing at the right times, they're excited at the right times, they're romantic at the right times, so, I think the parents probably make it a lot more dangerous than it is. They still hide, I go into airports and they hide their children, I'm harmless, I really am.
I have 3 kids that aren't hiding from you. In fact, I don't know, was one of you have a question, the other here for moral support, or what?
Well, the other day there was an article in the paper saying that Elvis Presley wrote a letter to J. Edgar Hoover saying that he wanted to be a spy because he thought that all these rock groups were communists. And I was wondering if the FBI ever asked you to spy.
Yeah, are you a communist, Alice?
No.
No, not.
No, I know what you know, that goes back to the punk thing also. I think Elvis Presley was probably the ultimate punk, you know, and I think that he would agree to that from the beginning to the end. I mean, with all the guns and everything, he was really living a very kind of punk image. But I thought that that was a very kind of Kurt Vonnegut thing that he would do, wanting to be a cop. You know,
Yeah.
it was very strange in the position that he was in, that he, you know, it was a strange place to be, wanting to be an FBI.
Let me get another quick question.
I want to know after the show if I give you a kiss.
Sure.
You can run right up there now and kiss him. Go, go, go. What's your question?
What got you started in your acts to be like unusual?
Wait, we got to get that kiss. He can't do two things at once. What got you started, Alice? What was the first thing that got you into the bazaar?
Well, I looked at what was going on in the rock business, even back in the Beatles. I was in high school, 16 years old, when the Beatles came out. And I realized how much my parents hated the Rolling Stones. And I was at that age where I saw that reaction. I said, well, gee, there's something there. There's some sort of power there. But they were not using visually. They weren't using the stage totally. Musically, it was great, but there was all that room to interpret it. Yeah, I mean, I really believe in that Ziegfeld thing, to give an audience a total bombardment of, you know,
do it. You were listening to David Sheehan. David Sheehan was listening to you, and I understand he's out in L.A. and has a question. David?
Yes, Jack. Alice, it's true, I think, that the bizarre approach you take is fun and entertainment. I've been to your concerts, and the kids really do turn on and get quite excited. But in your own mind, I mean, you're an intelligent fella, I think. Do you ever feel like all of that sadistic stuff really is pandering to the most barbarian instincts in your audience?
No, I really don't. I don't, because I think that, like I said before, I think the younger audiences have with Monty Python and with Saturday Night Live, with things that do verge on black humor, you know, or actually are specifically black humor. I think that audiences now are aware of that kind of approach to theater. And I think that when they see us, they don't take me seriously. You know, I don't really think they do.
The thing is, though, you experience it from the stage, and I experience it from being like in the middle of the group of kids who are getting turned on. And it really gives me the sensation that what you're doing with some of that stuff is arousing some very low-level stuff in terms of animal instincts, sadistic instincts, brutality, kind of a love for the gruesome.
Yeah, on a real theatrical level, and I think it ends there. You know, I think there's probably more brutality at a sale, you know. It's probably more theatrical at a sale also.
You don't think they take it home with them, huh?
No, I really don't. I really think that that this is such an aware, you know, a media-aware audience that they don't take it seriously. You know.
David, thank you very much for the questions. Alice, you're super. Thank you for visiting America Live. We'll be back.